Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Strand Tennis Center podcast, filled with tips, advice, tennis, not tennis, just life advice too, whatever you need. Like it on YouTube, share it on the podcast as well. Thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Strand Tennis Center podcast. This is Steve Cape, I'm your host. We are continuing our Mental Toughness series, and we are lucky to have, to me, one of the epitomes of mental toughness. Sergei Brylin is here. Luckily, we have had him. He's a three-time Stanley Cup winner, coach of the Devils, and we've luckily been lucky to have him here just with his children playing tennis. Got to know him. And we brought you here, Sergei, we talked about it a little bit, to discuss first mental toughness. We'll go through that, then we'll do a couple other things. But the biggest question I was asking you before in the lobby is, this is the hard part, coach a lot of kids. You've coached a ton. You have your kids playing tennis. Your son playing hockey obviously was. How much of this is nature or nurture? So we're talking about mental toughness. We find that some people just have an innate ability to be calm under pressure, to be cool in situations, and not that they don't get nervous, and we've discussed this many times on the podcast. They just choke less. They handle it better. Now, two questions. One, do you think you can train someone early to be that type of level? Or do they have an innate ability to do it? And number two, how quickly do you see whether someone has got this or not? So that's kind of like a two-pronged question.
Well, obviously, in my sport, we see it on the bench between shifts when the players come back from the ice, and wherever happens on the ice, you see their reaction, and especially at the pro level, obviously when pressure comes in, and obviously, like you said, some of the guys handle different situations better than the other, and I agree with you. Some of them have it, and some of them probably need to work on.
Yeah. Now,
and they need help, and that's why. We have people that work for the team, and they help guys on pretty consistent basis. Some of those guys go to those specialists pretty much every day, maybe every other day.
Are they like mindfulness coaches or something, or what do they do? I'm curious.
I mean, they just first of all, like we talked about before, we have to establish that trust factor and that relationship. And if the player trusts you, he can basically open up and say, hey, I feel nervous, or I feel this, I feel that, or maybe some people need to concentrate more, or they can't stay in the game long enough in order to do certain things, or stay in with the systems and the program and play the right way and play the way we want them to play. So those kind of things, and especially, another thing is in our sports, the goalies are a totally different animal. Those guys have a ton of pressure on their shoulders. If they make a save, they're the hero. If they don't, everybody blames the goalie. So there's a lot of pressure in hockey, and those guys have their own people probably because that's where the game went. Now, pretty much every player in hockey has these people that he works on in the summer, or not people that are not involved with the team, because like I said to you before, sometimes that trust is not there because if you work for the team, you don't want to open up too much. Everybody thinks about their contracts, about their future, how is it going to affect it, things like that.
So that leads me to another question. Now, when you were playing, was this ever heard of? Were guys in the 90s going to coaches on the side for mental acuity or any of that stuff?
Obviously not as much.
Okay.
But we had a person that worked with our team, and it actually helped me out too a little bit, because I had a tough time sleeping after games.
Okay.
So he was just was trying to help me out with that kind of recovery part, just trying to make me relax, give me like breathing exercises, stuff like that. So that can be used in tennis in between the points, and hockey on the bench when you're recovering after, a long shift, or you're just trying to get back to normal after being scored on or something, stuff like that.
So to get a little bit more specific, if you're having like anything, I would have trouble sleeping mostly after a loss because I was bothered by what I did wrong or whatever. Or your adrenaline was so pumped you couldn't sleep, or was it because you were like, listen, I should have did this, this, and this, and you were torturing yourself?
I think mine was just adrenaline, and I just, for some reason, I just had tough time falling asleep after games.
Okay. So we'll go back to it. Do you think a certain hockey player, a certain tennis player, football player, how they grow up is just going to make them tougher? We talked about Barry Bonds. I always talked about that his father was a baseball player. He grew up in stadiums. It was very comfortable for him. He was never nervous because he basically, as a 9-year-old, was in a stadium with 30,000 people just watching his father. How much of an advantage does a player like that have? Or is there pressure the other way because your father's kind of in that realm of star? I mean, is there an advantage there?
I think so, a little bit, but I don't know. Like I said, everybody's different, right? So, and again, hockey a little bit different because you have a team, right?
Yeah.
And you obviously have players that star players that's supposed to make the difference in the game, and they have different kind of pressure. Like I said, the goalie's got different kind of pressure. Maybe the guys that, don't play as many minutes or don't play as big of a role don't have as much pressure on their shoulders. But again, if you don't play as much and you go out there and do something wrong, and
it's even worse.
You might not even see another shift in the game. That's not different kind of pressure.
Well,
so we all have a little bit of pressure. And like you said, I think there's a little bit of advantage if you have a mentor, your parent, or somebody who played and went through it. And but again, it's been part of the parent or a coach and dealing with those kind of things and understanding those kind of pressure points that the players go through is the key. And I'm as guilty as anybody else. My older daughter, when she played tennis, I didn't probably realize how different that game is compared to hockey, because obviously, like I said, there's 20 of us on the team, and she's by herself on the court, and it's all up to her to make it or not to make it. So I think definitely the work with somebody can help, but my personal experience, I got helped. I got some help for my daughter, and she didn't like it. She didn't. Like I said to you before, the relationship's got to be established, and she wasn't able to do that. So she went to a couple of sessions, and she told me she didn't want to do it anymore. So.
Well, she seemed, we've had lucky enough to watch her, and she's been a talented player, Wake Forest National Championship and all those things. She always seemed very calm to me and seemed to be able to handle situations, and you didn't really know whether she was winning or losing. You'd watch matches, and all of a sudden she'd win 3-3, and I was like, what just happened? Right? Like, is that just her personality, is what I'm saying? Yeah.
I think it's personality, and trust me, I knew when she was winning or she was losing.
I knew. Yeah. Well, you're the father. I'm sure you did more than I did.
And sometimes I felt like she kept those emotions inside a little too much. I wanted to see sometimes a little more, fire on the court.
Okay.
But that's her personality. She was nice and quiet, and but I think it can be good. It can be, if you want to make next step, I think you got to have that fire, that energy, that killer instinct, in order to make that next step.
Now, how many players have you seen? Like you said, some of them struggle. They need to talk to people. How many players have you seen that are like, okay, this person is having some problems, and can you see? I'm kind of like a firm believer. I know there's neuroplasticity in your brain can change, but can that person really become this killer and become a person that is naturally already at a certain level of focus and killer instinct. Have you seen a 180-degree change in somebody?
Actually, yes. But
Oh.
again, it was just, maybe one or two guys that I experienced that with. We had a kid from Slovakia playing for us. I'm not going to, name
Sure.
anybody, but he was a talented player, but we saw there was another level of aggressiveness and, like a physical play in him because he was such a good, smooth skater. He used to just outskate people, but was kind of shy about, getting involved physically. And little by little, we talked to him. We were trying to force him to do things that, a lot of those kids growing up, they're not comfortable stepping outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Learning something new or doing something different or pushing yourself to the next level is not comfortable for a lot of those young players. And, we finally got him to do what, we were looking for him to do. And he liked it because it worked, and he probably never done it before. And when he saw the results, he was so excited and he loved it. And he made the next step. I had him in the minors and he went up and played in NHL. Did pretty well. Unfortunately, we end up losing that player. But like I said,
Sure.
that was probably one of the guys I can think of, right away.
I'm sure that builds trust too. Like you said, if you tell somebody to go out of their comfort zone and it's successful, it builds trust between the coach and you can really lead them even more. I mean, I'm sure that's a huge key. What are some of the specific things to get someone out of their comfort zone? Like what tactics? Like what would you say to this particular person? Like the breathing techniques you did as well. How do you get them out of their comfort zone? What do you do?
Well, we coach a team, but we work with every individual player and we try to make them better.
Okay.
Right? If we make them better individually, our team's going to be better. That's our approach, right? So this is how we sell it, right? We say, hey, listen, once you get to the NHL, all the players are good players.
Yeah.
I mean, they're there for a reason, but again, there's always room for improvement, and this is what we sell. And we say, hey, listen, in order for you to improve, score more goals, get more ice time, play in different situations, help the team. This is what we need to do. We got to work on this, and that. And this is how we sell it.
So it's kind of,
And then
obviously
at the end, it results in new contracts, right? So
there's a success, right?
Yes.
They'll get out of their comfort zone if they want to stay in the NHL, right?
Absolutely.
I get it. So speaking of, nature nurture, do you think how you were raised, when you were a kid in Russia, do you think did it lead you to be more tough, being able to be successful, or was it in you more, you think?
I am definitely growing up in Russia and, being exposed to those different situations and the way we were raised by our parents, the way we were coached, growing up is a lot different than, things are nowadays.
How was the coaching different? you can kill me a little bit. I mean, come on. This is.
Well, I mean, I got lucky. My father played a little bit, so he was obviously, my probably the biggest critic and the coach. And the coach growing up, I had the same coach for many years. The system in Russia is a little bit different for hockey players. I lived just outside of Moscow, so I was right from age 6. I was exposed to a professional coach, not like someone's dad's coaching like here. And it was one of the top hockey schools in the country back then. And he was I wouldn't say he was pushing us too hard, physically, mentally. His approach was kind of, if your destiny is to make it, you're gonna make it.
Okay.
But again, things that we did back then, and the way kids playing hockey and training and doing things is totally different.
Well, I would assume you'd have to be a lot more sensitive these days, even on my level. And
Yes.
it wasn't hockey; it was a tennis sport. But our coaches were a lot harder.
Oh,
30
absolutely.
years ago, they had
Yes.
no sensitivity. It wasn't
No.
like
No.
now everyone's got a phone and a camera, and if you say something that is just being hard on a child, it's like you're being abusive.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
So, but well, this is where we battle with this. I want to make this kid successful. Like, I know you have to paint everybody a different brush. Some kids need something different, but ultimately we got to be rowing in the right direction. If you don't want to be successful, you're really wasting everyone's time. So, and this is the battle you get with parents and kids, and I want my kid to do this, and the kid doesn't want to do it or whatever. And even on the highest level, we have kids that are great national players, but they hate it or they don't want to do it, and then you can't, and then they get sensitive. I mean, but that's what I was saying. Like, because Djokovic grew up in Serbia in a war-torn country, he seems so much tougher in that vein. Is it because you grew up in Russia during that time? Do you think that it just made you stronger just by the environment itself, not even the coach?
I think so. There's obviously something to it, but like you said, it's got to be a combination of both, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be a combination of both. We were obviously exposed to, tough competition, growing up, and life was a lot tougher. Let's put it this way, and I don't blame the kids now because obviously that's the life and that's the options that they have nowadays. Those are the options we never had. We grew up on the streets, playing playgrounds till it gets dark every day. So it was totally different.
Yeah, every kid's got a trainer, and they all have a physio and things like that. I remember when I was talking to Bill Rafter. He was he's the NCAA very successful college coach, played basketball. He goes, when I warmed up, I did like a toe touch. You went out there and played. You played some like it wasn't there.
Never got hurt.
You never got hurt. Yeah, you never got hurt either. You just go out there. Now all these physios and stretches and things like that. So personalities, you have to deal with different personalities. Let's do on both levels. Like with each one of your kids, do you feel the distinct difference in personality and go, okay, this is what I can do? Because your daughter Maria is very good, very young player. Do you feel like you have to say, okay, Maria needs this? And do you sense the difference in personalities?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have 3 kids, two girls and a boy, and they're all different. And again, this is a challenge as a parent, as a coach, to find a way to get to them, right? To get your message across and make them believe, make them do it, make them work at things that you see. And this is the most challenging thing in coaching, I think.
How do you handle that being you're a professional athlete? Do you tell your kids, listen, take this as far as you want? I mean, that's the balance, right? Do you feel, or do the kids feel like this is really possible because there's someone in the family that played professional? It seems a lot more doable. Or does it seem a lot more doable, or does it seem the opposite for them? What do you think?
I think it should be encouraging for them. If you're older sister or brother, done well, and you choose to go the same path, I think it should give you more confidence in what you're doing is going to work and is going to take you where you want to go. And again, for me, it was was a ex-professional athlete, and athlete that had pretty long, successful career. It was kind of tough to adjust my expectations for my kids at times. But you have to understand that we talked about, everybody's different and everybody's got a different set of tools, right? So
we always talk about goal setting. Like when you were younger, did it just kind of happen? You had this ability, or did you have it when you were 6 or 7 and said, hey, this is what I want to do? Or you just became very good and everybody said, all right, you're on this team. Like we had a player that was 110 in the world last year. She came and practiced a little bit. And I just asked her, she's from Georgia, the country. And she was just like, all of a sudden, I qualified for this. I qualified for that. And they said, you got to go to Spain. I was like, I didn't even have these distinct, straight goals that I want to be a professional. Did it just kind of happen? You were talented and said you went to this team or that team?
I asked my mom about that actually, and she said, I said, did you ever thought that I would be a professional hockey player? And they're like, no. No, I'm like, no. And I think it started to happen to me maybe around when I was 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. And you kind of start to separate yourself from the other players. And again, after, many, many years of this, I had a conversation with my agent, and he said something to me. At first, I'm like, there's no way. He goes like, you got lucky. I said, really? He goes, yeah, you got lucky because, you see so many kids that play tennis or play hockey, and, there's only a few of them will make it. And, the people we see on TV every day, those really special athletes. And again, nowadays, every parent sees the contract, sees the lifestyle of the professional athletes, and they want the same for their child, and it's okay. But we have to understand that there's only so many spots, and the competition is so hard nowadays. Probably it was, it's a lot harder than it used to be. I believe, because the resources that the kids have nowadays. And
well, there's just more countries that have the ability to support.
Yes.
30 years ago, it was the United States, it was Russia, it was a couple other countries that could do it. Now, you could be successful from coming from Uruguay because the money has been spread out enough.
Yeah.
So I always say, if you want a 1% life, you have to do 1% work. And a lot of people have all these dreams, but they don't want to do the 1% work. I mean, it is, and the stat is 1% of even high school players play college. That's only 1% of all the high school players. I mean, it is brutally hard, and I don't think people realize what they're getting into when they come up and they say, I want my kid to, I want my kid even to play Division I tennis or anything. That is just a real impossibility for a lot of kids, and then it leads to that animosity. And I'm sure you've heard of the book Open by Agassi, who really never liked his father, but there's plenty of kids that don't like their father that didn't make anything. And luckily he became successful and at least had some sort of fruits of his labor. I mean, that's why having the self-awareness to understand whether your kid even has it or not, and to be, all right, okay, listen, I can't probably push this kid. They just don't have the ability. So to wrap up the mental toughness part, anything that you've come across, that would be able to help tactically for someone. I mean, there's a list of these. I always talk about mindfulness and keep a journal and all those things. Is there anything that you've come across that has helped people, like you said, get out of their comfort zone? If a kid wants to be mentally tougher, what do you think they should do?
I think if you want to be mentally tough, you have to have confidence on the court. But the confidence comes from practice, right? Start with practice. If you master, stuff that you need to work on in practice, you go out there. All you have to think is just executing the plan, basically. And if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, then that basically means that you lost to a better player, and that's okay, right? So this is how I look at it. Again, in order for you to stay confident and trust your game, you got to start at practice. That's how I look at this. And again, like we talked about, how much do you really want it, right? They all say they want to win, but nobody wants to do the little things, right?
Yep.
To get better. And again, it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. It takes a long time. So you just have to trust the process, work on your game, do extra. If you really love the game, I mean, that shouldn't be that hard. If you don't like the game, that's what it starts. You got to love the game.
That's why I love talking to you, because there's no mystery, right? Everybody says, well, what's the best way? There's no fast way. You just work. You just do the work. And that's why they said Michael Jordan he loved to practice. He just wanted, they wouldn't play games. He wanted to practice. And this was the best, arguably the most talented basketball player in the world, and he wanted to practice and practice and practice. You just have to do the work. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, go ahead.
And another thing I want to say, I actually was thinking lately about my career a lot, and still, like, I played 20 years professionally in Russia and in North America in NHL. And now I look back and I'm like, I should have done that and this and maybe concentrate more on that. But again, once you get older, you understand. Now you look at those things and that was probably a mistake, or I did too much of that instead of doing this. And and again, there's no formula for success. You have to try and see, and but you got to stay on that path of getting better and developing a game and working on the little things and loving it.
Can you give me one that's not too personal of a mistake? You said, well, maybe I shouldn't have did this.
I think I kind of, once I got my role and on the team, and I kind of maybe stopped thinking about getting better at some other things that I needed to work on. Okay. Basically, I kind of got, okay, this is who I am as a player, and that's fine, because guess what? In a team environment, you need different kind of players, right? It's not like tennis, right? In tennis, you got, even in tennis, you either
you're a serving volleyer or
exactly. Or you smashing the ball from the baseline, and you got a big serve. You got to have weapons, right? And you got to use them. Same thing in hockey. We all do little things. Like I said, there are star players that make a difference in the games. The guys that kill penalties, play on the power play, play last minute when you up a goal, or last minute you win faceoffs. There's so many different things, and again, still, it's fine to have a role, but you can always get better and work at different things.
Yeah, that's what we've always said about tennis. You can have specifics, but you're out there by yourself, and you can't be like the best rebounder on the team, and that's a good role. You can't just serve and not return. Yeah. That's the hard part. I get it. Yeah. You can have some specifics that you're great at, but it is difficult. So just to get on the coaching side, and we'll let you go. Same thing. Do you feel like you always need to improve coaching? You're always learning. You're always trying to grow. You always feel like I want to be a better coach, and how do you do that? Are you just studying film all the time? Are you reading? I'm just curious how you're improving as a coach.
No, absolutely. Again, it's the same as being a player. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And we got hundreds of other coaches that are, looking at the same film, and they thinking of how are we going to beat New Jersey Devils next time we play them. So, and it's just as a team, or the same thing as individually too. We have players that we're responsible for, and our job is to get them better, like I said, and finding new ways to work on different stuff. Or
give me a quick schedule. Like during the season, I always love coaches' schedules. How long is the day? Is it insane, or is it a decent schedule?
What's insane?
I know that's insane. It's all relative. You're like 15 hours is not insane. It's fine.
Well, again, we have two different kind of. Actually three: training camp, right? Game days, and practice days, right? So those are three kind of different days, and travel days also. So those are kind of long days. You have to practice and you have to travel.
Are you in before though? Practice.
Training camp. Yeah. Obviously, we have a lot of players to start training camp. Usually, I would say probably when I played, it was a lot more. It was like 60 players to start. Now it's more maybe like 45. There's a lot of young kids, junior players coming. So you pretty much have three different groups. Well, those days are long. We all start at 7. You get your first meetings probably at 8:30, and you have 3 different sessions on the ice. So by the time you finish, it's probably 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock. And after that, you pretty much, you work on practice for the next day. You sit down with other coaches and you think of, what we want to work on tomorrow. And the game days are, usually same thing. You have a meeting in the morning. You have a morning skate. Some teams, or sometimes you don't skate as a team. You just have an option because we trust our players. They mature enough to know if they need to skate, if they don't need to skate. Then you come back. I usually go home because I don't want to stay at the rink all day, and
Sure.
I usually go home after lunch. You come back around 4 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game.
I'm sure you work out.
No, yeah, in between,
Yeah,
in between,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
We have another meeting, a special teams meeting, and then there's a game at 7 o'clock. Usually you're done by 9:30, 9:45, if it doesn't go in overtime. And you sit down, you talk about the game with the other coaches. Sometimes you don't because it depends how the game went, right?
Yeah, okay.
So then you go home, and unless we have another game tomorrow. If it's a back-to-back with travel, then we leave right after the game. We could jump on a plane. We go somewhere. And the practice days are usually the same thing. You start at 7. You watch the film from the previous game. You put your clips together. You put them together for like a 5-minute video session. Usually 5-minute video will be maybe like 7 or 10-minute meeting. We practice. And then
Okay. So, but 2 questions I thought about in that. During training camp, this is where ability sets in like mental toughness and edges and things like that. When you look at all these people in training camp, what's the difference between someone, are they all purely physically great? What's the real difference between someone making the NHL roster and someone just getting cut on the last, just getting cut? Like, where is that line, you think? Is it physical?
It's a combination of things.
Okay.
Obviously, before training camp starts, you only have few spots that you can actually...
Everything else signed for and things like that.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Unless there's something major happens during camp, and usually it's still like maybe 1 or 2 players, either don't perform well or, they get injured or something and those spots open up. Stuff like that. So, and again, there's a few guys that actually have a chance to make the roster, and it's based on a lot of different things. It's based on what you see, how they play, their experience, their previous experience with the coach. It's all about trusting the player, right? So, and we usually, there's always 1 or 2 surprises. Guys come in and they play well, they practice hard, and they usually get a chance.
Okay. I was just curious about that. I don't think I have anything else, Sergei. It was so great. It was so great to have you here. I really appreciate it. I mean, because it's been great to have your family here. It's great to have your kids. Trust me, the kids are excellent players, and you can just Google them anyways, because your daughter has been super fantastic. Your oldest, obviously, and your youngest, like you said, I think she is even tougher. Like you talked about, like she's got that. To me, that killer instinct. I don't know. I mean, we can go on that. I think
she's got that. We're just starting to concentrate in tennis a little more. She played soccer the last 2 years, so she's just starting to get into it and getting feel for tennis, and hopefully she'll enjoy the journey, and we'll see how far.
Do you find herself leaning to that now? Does she like that more now, or do you think like?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, Sergei, it was great to see you.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Stay happy, Santi, and healthy. I'll see you.
Hey, everybody. Hope you like the podcast. Please share it with your friends, anybody that you know, anybody that's into tennis, anybody that's into bettering themselves. Share it.